Buongiorno.
Good morning.
Benvenuti alla
Good morning and welcome to Teatro Grassi. My name is Cristiano Rocca. Maria Porro, she is the president of Salone di Milano. You all know her. Maria, we can take a seat. So what we're doing today, we're presenting to you the very first annual report which was drafted by Salone del Mobile along with Politecnico di Milano. Well, the goal is to tell about the design ecosystem in Milan. It is truly a very interesting report. I do have two tasks for the day. One is a bit fun, is to help out my friends from Politecnico as well as Salone. So I will help them out, say what came out of this beautiful research. And then the second task is to manage timings, because of course we want to make the best of your time. So we will try to stick to the agenda as much as we can. So before I actually dive into the results of this annual report, there's a video clip which we are now sharing. Beppe Sala is sharing his greetings. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The appointment today very much marks a milestone within a much longer journey that Salone del Mobile means to deliver in terms of impact of the Design Week of Milan. It is truly a significant week for the whole of the city. And the event itself really mirrors itself into the city and the other way around. Many different people, visitors coming from all over the world, strengthening also the reputation of the city of Milan, but also of the entire nation. Design is very much let's say, the core of a more complex ecosystem, and Salone del Mobile keeps stimulating and makes it grow. And when I talk through stimulation, it is not just around the furniture business, but it is very much impacting architects, students, experts, visitors who are coming not only to find out about novelties, but also to take part and attend the many different events which are scattered all around the city. We should think about Salone del Mobile as a kind of accessible place for everybody. We don't want to consider that as a fortress, because Salone very much keeps having a dialogue with all of the different aspects of the city. And the response that the city of Milan is providing back is constantly punctual, and it means to contribute to the overall success of the event. Design Week is heavily attended and loved globally. And this is the reason why the municipality of Milan, along with the councillors, we have decided to become part as well, to play our role in this annual report that is being drafted by Salone along with Politecnico of Milan. This has delivered the design ecosystem, which is the title of the report that is going to be introduced today. And this, of course, will possibly entail an ongoing observatory fully devoted to the Design Week. This is just the beginning of a multidisciplinary approach meant to valorize the event broadly, as well as all the repercussions on the city today and in the future. It is a strategic project for all of us, for the administration, so that we can plan better the services delivered to the citizens. So thank you so much to the Salone del Mobile Design School from Politecnico di Milano and everybody who has contributed and will keep doing so in the future ahead, always being productive and constructive, so that this report can become a regular, let's say, report that is going to be provided all together between Salone and the municipality of Milan. Thank you all. Well, special thanks to Mayor Sala, as well as to Alessia Cappello, Counselor from Economic Development. She has collaborated with both Politecnico and Salone del Mobile to make this report possible. And this is really standing for this ongoing dialogue that you heard of from Sala. We're now listening from a president of Lombardy region, Attilio Fontana. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, President Maria Porro. Thank you, Francesco Zurlo. Thank you so much for inviting me to present an annual report, Design Ecosystem in Milan. I would like to say hello to all of the attendees and all of the speakers as well. Thank you so much for delivering this interesting report around the impact of the Design Week in Milan. It is a research project made through the scientific support of Politecnico di Milano. Design Week is a crucial week for the whole of the city, but also for the design industry, as well as all of the industries which tie to it. I have very much appreciated this in-depth scientific research into one of the most appreciated event happening in Milan. I do believe that long-term monitoring will probably set foundations to develop strategies in the future. I'm thinking about economic, environmental challenges, as well as the cultural legacy. Design Week really means striving for excellence, for excellent skills, and for excellent manufacturers who are capable of stimulating research and innovation altogether. I am so very glad that the so much peculiar traits of made in Italy, they can now rely on a permanent observatory. And I am as glad that Lombardy region may deliver their contributions. So I would love to welcome you all. Welcome annual report. Thank you all. Have a productive day. Thank you, Governor Fontana. What it's saying is very true. It is a long-term monitoring activity. This is not a book. It is truly a commitment from our side. And thank you, Lombardy region. He is one of the main data holder. Many of the figures that you will come across in the report, they actually come from the ability to access these figures. Donatella Sciuto, rector from Politecnico di Milano, is sharing his greetings. Good morning, everyone. I'm really sorry I cannot attend this beautiful day introducing the outcome of the analysis that were performed over Design Week. Universities for a long time now have becoming key actors in playing a role on the territory, not only because we do train people, we do make research, but also have a social commitment. Politecnico di Milano has always been an institution that on top of research means to develop the critical thinking for the students based on scientific evidences as well as experimental evidences. This is the reason why we very much welcome the beautiful challenge that we have been asked by Federlegno to perform an analysis research to measure the impact of the Design Week over the city of Milan. I do hope that today's event is going to demonstrate to all of you what stood out from the last Design Week. Thank you all.
Bene, ringraziamo anche Donatella Sciuto per...
Thank you, Donatella Sciuto, for her speech and greetings, and thank you for emphasizing the importance of the role of universities. Over the last few months, we've had, of course, the opportunity to understand more about this, working with Politecnico. And this also allows me to introduce our guest today. A rector said about critical thinking. Back in July, we've had an incredible day where Mr. Kova, sociologist, was delivering a lectio magistralis talking through the connective intelligence. And on that afternoon, although the air conditioning was not really working, you probably remember how hot that day was, we were still able to set this collective intelligence up. So to carry on this analysis, we're truly honored today to introduce, well, he calls himself as a Uber planner. We do like to call him a visionary. Back in the 80s, he was developing the terminology creative city, the word creative city. Is going to enlighten us with his thinking, but also he will tell us how creativity can really become a tool for the rebirth of the city. So this very guest is Charles Landry. Thank you.
Hi. Hi.
Floor is yours.
Right. Great to see you. È un privilegio. Parlo in inglese, mi dispiace, ma le parole italiane.
I will speak English. I do not have enough Italian words.
Talking about the art of creative city making, which you, of course, know about. And every city of any substance and, foresight is asking, where shall we go? Where are we going? How do we get there? And one of the things they're thinking about, of course, is the great transition we are all involved in and this need to retrofit so many things around us. And so can I take you on a journey, which is the journey of radical collaboration? We'll come back to that at the very end. Now, I think, and perhaps all of you think, that the city is more than a place in space. It's a drama in time. We can see it. Even me coming to this event today was a mini drama. And when I think about cities, I always think of what sort of music is the city. And I think good city making is more like improvised jazz than a well-tempered symphony orchestra. So many things are unpredictable, but hopefully it all works and we can improvise. And Italians are pretty good at improvising, as we know. So the question is, does Milano want to be or have a bigger story? And what could that bigger story be? Perhaps a culture of creativity, not just a creative city, a culture of creativity. You have a culture of design, of course. So we're talking about business, design, scientific, artistic, social, bureaucratic creativity. I know it sounds like a contradiction, but it is existing in many places. And if we did that, and if you did that, it would be a shift in paradigm, I think. It would be an empowering ethos. It would be a way in which ordinary people could make the extraordinary happen if given the chance. But what that requires, and this is really difficult, it's moving from a no-because culture to a yes-if culture. And we do know there's an element of tribalism in many places, also in Italy. I have my domain, my territory. I don't really want to collaborate, etc. But that culture of saying yes, if, is much better than no, because. So the creative city, in very simple terms, this is a 300-page book in 3 sentences, is how you connect this triad, culture, creativity, and the city together in terms of navigating the changes and transformations that are happening and providing those enabling conditions for people, organizations, and the city to think, plan, and act with imagination in solving problems and creating opportunities. So when I think of Milan, and I'm a foreigner, of course, what do I think when I think of Milan? Well, I think Milano communicates through every fiber of its being. So when I arrived here yesterday, I thought, is it going up? Is it going up? I hope it is. It's quite active. Are all of you change makers in this evolving city? And so I then thought about then and now, this communication of then. What was it then? What did it feel like? And then I saw this wall and I thought, yes, here are so many layers of history. I know we're talking about contemporary stuff now, but it's the layers of history that are so interesting. And then I remembered going to the Galleria and I thought, oh, how beautiful. But then I remembered that this is the reality sometime. And I thought, we need a policy, we need to design how you deal with over-tourism. And of course, when I think of Milan, I think of lots of interesting architecture and stuff like that. I think of the Salone del Mobile, and I think of all sorts of funny objects that you do. Some are crazy, some are wonderful. I think of fashion. My wife was a model, so I think of fashion a lot. She's not a model anymore, she's quite old, but she would be a good old model, probably. Then I think of AC Milan or Inter Milan. Who do you like? Oh my God, I can't see who supports what. And then I remember going to Corso Como many years ago, and I thought, hey, this is great, this combination of all sorts of stuff and nature and so on. But then I also saw some poverty. And I saw some people who were really old who were also incredibly poor. And then I saw some graffiti which said wasted youth. So it's not all a wonderful story, it's an interesting story of good and bad, light and dark. So then the question to me is Milano and the world. What is the ambition of Milano for the world, in the world? Where is it going? And one of the things is completely clear. I saw this lift which said, can you open doors for me? Can you open them for me? And then the lift doors opened. And there were boxes, but I think what it's really saying is that young group is obviously now. And that reminded me of perhaps an ambition you could have. How could you be the best design city, not in the world, but for the world? That one change in word from in to for is dramatic, for the world, because that's a message. It's a different story. It's a completely different story. It's actually a compelling story, and it can speak to all. It's a different script, it's a different book, it's a different way of writing a narrative. Now, of course, I know this is easy to say, but it's incredibly difficult to do. But there is a yearning out there, if one's listening to what people are saying, younger people are saying, the loneliness crisis, all of these things around us, they want to do something that is beyond the self, that reconnects the individual. We're all individual, we're egotistical probably, but there is a bigger whole, which reminds us that we perhaps need this plan B. This plan B that may or may not shape the identity of this future Milano. This is a horrible building. It's in Belfast, don't worry. Then you could say, if this bigger story, I think it's emotive and relatable. I think it's also, we could imagine ourselves being in this place that is for the world. And I have to ask, you're a Catholic country, is there a beauty in the sacrifice? Because doing for the world is obviously more difficult than doing for oneself. Can you surrender yourself to this bigger idea of being for the world? And of course, it requires courage, ethics, and many other things. Because the big issues, we all know what the big issues are. You know every one of these big issues. The earth is hurting. The earth is really hurting. We know we need to stop fossil fuels. We know hydrogen is better. We know the ice is melting, like this Olafur Eliasson project in Paris. You probably saw it, the ice melting. Or here, the Ocean Agreement Conference in London. Wonderful artistic project, as you can see. Even the fish hurt, as you know. And then when I was born, there were only 2.1 billion, and now there are nearly 8 billion. So of course there's going to be problems. You know, are we going to actually deal with that difficult complexity? I know Italian growth's going down, I know that, but in the world, it's going up. So all of this, you could say, is scary. And as you know, graffiti often tells a story. And it is also fragile. And this fragility is the thing that makes us want to wake up. Wake up, because you know, I know, everybody here knows in the room, we're in the midst of a systemic crisis where a business as usual approach will not get us to where we need to be. Because our economic order and way of life is materially expansive, socially divisive, and environmentally hostile. And I remember this lovely saying where people said, yesterday you said tomorrow you will deal with all of these matters, but tomorrow is today. So even all of us, me too, I never really act in the way I want to act, even though I know, and this is where Milan perhaps can connect better in a bigger way with the global world, because it's all about global solutions. Can Milano be a pioneer in pursuing all of these things? And so the question is it hope or fear, or is it in between? And it's probably both. It's probably both hope and fear mixed up. And then we might as well have a coffee and have a nice meal, because we can't deal with the problem. But I do feel there is light on the horizon somewhere. And it all depends on mindset and attitude, and lots of other things as well. And it depends if we find a way of reframing. Reframing is the art of looking at things differently. And what I'm suggesting is a tiny reframe from in the world to for the world. And what you find there is some issues one needs to deal with. Reframing. You need to bend, I believe, the market, the energy of the market, to bigger picture aims and purposes. One needs to find ways of valuing the intangible and value things beyond gross domestic product. You know, people say, what's the value of culture? I say, don't ask me that question. What's the cost of not valuing culture? Just as an example. So then there is this question, the future. What is the future? I don't know what the future is. But one thing I do know, or I think I know, I hope I know, is that we need to harness the civic imagination. The civic imagination. There are all these people, these Milanese, doing all sorts of stuff, these crazy Milanese. And they have an energy somewhere. There is this energy. But how can we harness it? How can we bring it together to a common purpose, where we together say this energy with all these people will come together? And I believe when that happens, there will be breakthroughs. There will be breakthroughs, and some of these could be quite exciting. I think they would be exciting, because I think the inspiration and imagination and all of that is obviously in the DNA of Milano. So, when I think then of design, what comes to your mind, and can design help? Now, to tell you what is about design, you are the collective design conoscenti in the world. So forgive me for saying, yes, when I think of design, I think of graphic design, I think of various old objects that have been designed, I think of funny new objects, I think of interiors of various sort, that's a bit old-fashioned. I think of buildings being built, and I think, of course, of houses and buildings being placed in various instances and being constructed, and I think of public place, like here, the airport in Adelaide, very nice, partly Aboriginal design, partly Western linear design. So these are some of the things that come to my mind. But you know, and I'm just trying to keep it in my mind, that design is more. There's so much more to design. I keep on thinking a designed world has concepts and paradigms. If you think of the whole concept from the 70s onward, sustainability, circularity, and all of that, actually it was a different paradigm. Or turning waste into resource is a shift in concept. It's a reframing. I think of the collaborations that could happen, but I don't think are happening in Milano enough, between science and art, and reinventing things and inventing things through these combinations, because that would mean that the institutions would have to really collaborate and not say, I'm a scientific institution, you're arts, we are in different buildings, we don't really connect. But if you did that, this is one of the big things that is happening in the world, and Berlin is making this point I'm making as one of their key points. But of course you can design democracies and bureaucracies, we'll come back to that later, and of course atmospheres and a sense of belonging. So circularity is obviously taking the horrible things that look disgusting and not very nice and making them green in some sense, or turning that waste into money. The Finns are brilliant at this. But then here is this colliding art and science. The Getty Institute in California is spending millions in these new collaborations. Again, I ask, is Milano doing much there? Because I'm thinking also too of the New Zealand pavilion in Expo Dubai, where you walk through the river has a personality. Now, to make me feel that I was the river was pretty difficult and required artistic thinking as well as scientific knowledge. And then, as I said, designing democracies and bureaucracies, I founded a festival called The Creative Bureaucracy, an oxymoron. Can that be true, creative bureaucracies? I think yes. Because out of the 600 million bureaucrats in the world, not everyone is an idiot. Many have ideas of various sorts, and we bring many of these together. Last June, there were 1,800 of these bureaucrats, and it was young people, young bureaucrats who wanted to rethink how you do things. So there is another dimension of designing. You have to put that together. You need strategies are designed, policies are designed, etc. And particularly with AI, of course, there's another dimension of that design. Hopefully we're controlling AI rather than the reverse. But did you know that the World Design Capital, the first one I think was in Torino a long time ago, is actually, its focus is designing for democracy. That is the focus, which is interesting. It's in Frankfurt am Main region. And within that, the creative bureaucracy thing is one of the main themes, designing new forms of bureaucracy. But in terms of atmospheres, you, of course, can design these sort of streets that don't look so soulless and empty by breaking down the street into parts. So think cities. What comes to your mind? I know you know what a city is. Of course you know what a city is. Everything I'm about to say, you know. And we know that it's an organic being. It's a living organism of all these wild people going in all sorts of directions. But the question, as I said before, is alignment. But alignment not only in terms of sectors and so on, but in terms of time, aligning time. The thing about memory. Too often we forget what was once good because we're obsessed sometimes by the new. And so that endless forgetting, I think, can be a real problem. But anyway, you know that cities are people, of course. They are activities, of course. They are services. They are buildings. They are streets and parks, bus stops, industries. It's all here. You know all of that, of course. They're infrastructures that we can't see, which make the city work. The way we move around, the movement systems, and the communities either in the center or the neighborhoods or wherever else. In other words, it's a combination of hardware, software, soft, I love the word software, and orgware, the organizational culture. What is the organizational culture of Milano like? You know, not me. But it's also about the networks created between the soft, the hard, and all of that together. In other words, it's about the public sector, the private sector, the not-for-profit, academia, and the key thing here, and this is so difficult, easy to say, it's this calibration between these different elements in a way that actually forms a mosaic that you could call the collaborative mosaic, collaborative competition. And I know too many people say, let's collaborate, but let's deliver on that. Because the key thing, if you had a principle, if I have a principle, it's my guiding principle is this a city of projects, or is the city the project? And too few people think of the city as a project rather than one little tiny element, the real estate person who wants to do their building and I want to maximize my profit and the other person wants something else. This fragmentation is the big dilemma of our time. This operating in boxes, I am in one of those boxes, by the way, and it's a horrible feeling to be in a silo, I think. Because what that does, and this is something I was involved in developing, the Light Festival in Helsinki, what it does, it gives you a limited and distorted view of what is possible. So that question of bringing the parties together, easy to say, difficult to do, I know, is really the thing that can activate this dynamic urban ecosystem. And that is about orchestration. Orchestration. I love the word orchestration. It's bringing these things together in harmony, having a 360-degree perspective. You know, this is Cloudgate in Chicago, where when you're in there, you have this 360-degree perspective. You see the city, you see everything shining. You have a clearer view of things. So what all of that is about is connecting, but really connecting, really connecting. And that is a culture. And that is a culture. And that culture of connecting, which I think is visceral, that people really want to connect. Of course, we're social beings and so on. But culture is the other invisible hand, the invisible hand that makes things work, the invisible hand that tells us why Milano is like Milano and Torino is like Torino or whatever. And that is the thing that I think can resonate, this thing of from in to for the world, would spread out and resonate in some sense. It would make more people want to come, not leave Milano, but come. I know you're getting more population, but to come back and feel this could be my home. Now, all this, of course, can be designed. We know that. You know that. You probably are involved in it. And so common good design is perhaps what we're really talking about. And I remember this interesting event. There's a festival that happened for many years in Amsterdam called We Make the City. And you can see the words that we all say, you know, circular, vibrant, all of that, those sort of words. Or these words, inclusive, smart, all of the things we agree with. But these are the real words that have deep meaning. And when we ask ourselves what makes a livable city, there was an interesting survey in Canada of 250,000 people. And they came to the conclusion, and you know all the qualities. The question is not you knowing the qualities, it's the question of why are we not doing something about this enough? So what is it? We want places that are convenient, distinctive, affordable, proximity. We want them vibrant, safe, aesthetic qualities, accessible. They want environments to feel healthy, to feel sensory in a very generous way, and to be inspiring, of course, and for people to have options. So that's what the 250,000 people in Canada concluded. But, there's always a but, unfortunately, but I think we can overcome the but. There is a brick wall, and that brick wall is the wall behind which there are the obstacles. And what are these obstacles? Bad ideas. Bad ideas. A very short sentence. Bad ideas. One bad idea is to say simplistically, the market can solve everything without collaborating with a public interest. A bad idea is vested interests as well, who say, I know I should give up petrol and fossil fuels, but I don't want to. Or entrenched interests, you know, people cannot change their mind and mindset. And polarization, of course, today, I don't need to mention that. And perhaps most importantly, trust between the different elements that make up a great city. So that trust question is perhaps one of the biggest issues. Yet, there are so many examples of great things. I'll give you just a few. One, Wales, the country of Wales in Britain, has a Future Generations Commissioner. By law, every policy has to be looked at through the eyes of the generation that isn't voting, that is very young. Very easy for Milano to do. The Dutch Inland Ministry has something called the Chief Exploration Officer, whose role is to look at the world and find and explore those things that are different, that are radical, that are interesting, that could be good for the Netherlands. And then, of course, you know about the civic imagination offices. Bologna has one, Cluj in Romania. There's another one in Budapest. There are many more. There's just one mechanism to harness that collective imagination. But also Helsingborg, small city in Sweden, has something called a failure award. And I know bureaucracies are complex, But you get a prize for failing, not because you were stupid, but because you tried hard. And you get these 5,000 euros and you can go to a training course to learn something better. Great idea, failure award. And I hope I'm not being too egotistical, but I also think the creative bureaucracy idea is actually a bit of a movement in the making, because people are saying, we are not alone in shifting all of this. And what that means is obviously an amazing handshake between the digital, the real, the virtual, all of these things together with these sectors coming together and rethinking the incentives and regulations regime. This is a Russian piece of art, by the way, but it's quite interesting. It sort of says what I want to say. And finally, perhaps, this is in front of Reykjavik's town hall, city hall, and it's a granite head. And I don't believe that every person who's trying to collaborate, particularly public servants, I don't think they're all granite heads. So that's very bold of Reykjavik to do that. So finally, I don't think it's all about money. It's not all about money. It's about mindset. And it also is about finding glamour in the unglamorous strategy policy, all of these words that we have, finding glamour in the unglamorous. And finally, a sentence for me that's important: the soft is the hard. Many of the physical things are easier to do than the soft and the intangible. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've got to go. I'm sorry, I've got to go somewhere.
Sta scappando perché deve
Apologize.
prendere
Bye-bye Milano.
un
Ciao.
aereo.
Arrivederci Milano.
Charles Landry.
Io devo prendere questo.
Ah sì, te lo prendo.
I think I need to reach for my papers.
Allora,
Maria,
cominciamo
let us start.
nel merito del...
Let us turn our attention to the report, and you will be sent one via email, and you can also download it from the website of Salone.
No, perché vi siete
Why
in questa...
did you venture upon this endeavor? It has already been highlighted earlier this morning. This is the first step towards a permanent observatory. And why did you take this journey? Well, speaking after the latest speech is quite challenging, and answering the question why and with whom. Let me start from with home, because it's easier. Politecnico Milano, and I thank them very much. Why Politecnico? First of all, the Politecnico is the top first university at an international level, and it is one of the foremost cornerstones, and it's one of the incubators of the Milan Design system. And we also wanted someone knowing what we are talking about from inside, someone delivering a sort of third-party perspective, and also to refer back to the words of Professor Sciutto, it's the role of the university. I believe that by the standards of the operator, like Salone, this is added value. And let me answer to the question, why? Let me read a short sentence that the two main travel mates read, Francesco Zurlo and Maffei, that we will listen to later on, answering why, with an excerpt drawn by the Politecnico is a response. They write, it is in the critical relationship between a system of economic activities that represent the engine, therefore Salone del Mobile di Milano, stable, proactive resources. The Milan Design system, it's the informal model of widespread creativity that must, once again, and it's from this very system that we need a unique, new Milanese vision outlook, which is what Landry said earlier. So finding a database that once again helps us make headways vis-à-vis the Milanese culture, which is so hard to set into boundaries and describe. Therefore, what about the evolution? This is the first annual report, and we are aiming to set up a permanent observatory, as already pointed out. It is divided into macro chapters. The first regards Salone, so it's truly an annual report. There's a major section devoted to Milan Design Week with all the stakeholders, the macroeconomic effects. They will describe this even better, more extensively. And then Milan Design System, which is that activator that all year round makes it possible to have the breeding ground and culture for things to happen. So let us start therefore from the first chapter that you already introduced, that you have just introduced. So Milano, Salone del Mobile.Milano. What does it highlight? Which are the key aspects? We have tried, first of all, to tap into keywords, and the first keyword is evolution. An evolution that also amounts to a recovery moment. We talked about the evolution of the layout, which means the evolution of the format, whereby we have brought the world back to Salone del Mobile. First of all, we have tried to win over trust from international exhibitors, and the work focuses on the international dimension, international scope, and therefore bringing Salone into the world. I'm sharing some examples because we are just back from Shanghai, when and where we described design through a performing relationship among objects, and this ballet company in Shanghai, outstanding, and this met with a tremendous success. They are hungry. I think we're all hungry for the culture of design, and somehow Salone is striving, really is investing financial resources, time, creativity into telling the story. We did it in New York early in September. We will be in Miami. We will be flying to Miami next Monday. We have an international tour, and this promotion is growingly important. An evolution that is tangible, an evolution that is maybe more hidden, more underground. And why? Because attention must be paid to details. So we need therefore to rearrange communication elements. As Mr. Landry said, design is also graphics. So we need to pay utmost attention to minor details. So blood red, which everybody knows. What's the emotional key that speaks across channels? It's an evolutionary key, and this year this has been evidenced by the presence of design kiosk in Piazza La Scala. It is very significant to note that this initiative was seized with an opening speech by Stefano Boeric. Therefore, we have this network of relations that must also implement and promote these events. And then we also have the figures, therefore measurement. The report therefore illustrates these figures extensively, and it's an annual report, therefore to be published, to be released every year. A measurement that Salone has always made, because within this network, international network, we have official figures. Then, thanks to the collaboration with the Leone and partners, we have round tables. We have measured figures not only quantitatively but also qualitatively. And what are the figures? Therefore, what are the outcomes? 95% of exhibitors are claiming they would like to exhibit at the Salone del Mobile.Milano again. And why is this figure important? Because this is about reinforcing the relations with our stakeholders. There's another figure, 241, which is the new companies exhibiting. So some of them are back, others are exhibiting for the first time. So we have a sort of dualism between the continuity of companies that are back, and also paying attention for added visibility of companies. And this stresses once again the vitality, the vibrancy of this event. Intention to return. This is visitors, as Landry said, something that makes you say, this may be my city. I want to go back to Salone. 88% of visitors this year answered that they would like to return to the Salone del Mobile.Milano again. And this also comes from the ISO certification, which dictates complete transparency, which is one of the pivotal tools, and this report is evidence for that, so that we have ongoing evolution. We have another topic which is less measurable, as Professor Landry said. How can we measure if we don't invest in culture? The same question is also what the Salone is asking themselves. In the report, we have a lovely section, and 90 great shows since 1987. The first. I'm not going to read them out, all of them, but it's magnificent. The first concerns Giuseppe Maggiorini, the Hebonist, and we have then all the great masters of design, all the way down to Greenway and the Last Supper. Again, Mr. Landry talked about the reframing. Therefore, it's the ability and the will of Salone to invest into culture of design, and this is something of paramount importance. We're very happy that the City of Life, I can see Beppe Finessi, and they are a candidate for Compasso d'Oro. This testifies to how these investment effort and in being business accelerators and supporting, advocating the culture of design is effort that we are acknowledged. Something maybe about next year. Maybe it is worthwhile spending a few words, even though that I know that my press office probably, and I still would like maybe to hear some other comments. Well, it's an incredible design challenge, and it's something that companies work on for all year round. Salone del Mobile is committed, like all the stakeholders that are involved. We will be talking about it later on. You have already hinted at Salone 2024. It was a record-breaking year because we have totaled 370,000 visitors, and this is the second chapter in the report. We have lots of figures, lots of information. Well, I think you are already aware of some of them. This slide summarizes the macro figures that we always publish at the end of every Salone. And we have also some figures that are extremely significant. 1950 exhibitors from 36 countries, and this strongly highlights the international scope of Salone del Mobile, as well as the will to be an international capital of design, let alone Salone, satellites, therefore, where the number of countries has been tremendously on the rise. 370,834 visitors, 53.93% from abroad. By going through the report, and President Feltrin will tell us about the macro data of the interior design industry and compare data. That's very important. And 53.93% that you read actually resonates with the Expo system, which is 52%. I think there seems to be a strong correlation between the effect of Salone, the impact on the real economy. And this testifies to the key role of the industry. Here we have some other figures, as you can see, professionals attending the Salone, 276,059 professionals, 65.6% from abroad. Then we have obviously a lot of work that we companies see, people, the public, the audience don't see it. It's setting up and dismantling. This involves 899 companies that work within the ground on the site with 83,465 manpower. So there's a figure, the number of meals that are served during that time, 233,046 meals. And again, it's a very straightforward figure, a straightforward number, but this communicates how the goal of Salone is to foster corporate culture and the central role played, so breeding, generating job opportunities. And doing this with a sustainability specific driven perspective. We have signed an agreement with ASAC, which is the company of exhibitors, and so that all the setting up companies are certified. They are monitored in terms of legal standards, legal requirements. Therefore, we said 83,465 manpower, a huge number. Then obviously we produce plenty of waste. That's absolutely true. 84.56% is differentiated, is recycled. Therefore, ISO imposes a transparency of these figures, but also an ongoing improvement. Here we also see the breakdown of the various waste and the monitoring of waste, and this is a very important target and goal. Let me mention a couple things which concern the guidelines for exhibitors, guidelines that we enforced a couple of years ago, and this is leading to interesting results. We have realized that we have eliminated plasterboard, and we have actually introduced some other materials, something that is not measured but actually obeys response to this culture of design under the surface installation that was in one of the halls, one of the pavilions. This has been recycled entirely for making sound absorbing panels, boards. Therefore, zero waste, and this is measurable. Then we have something more intangible, but thanks to that installation, or in the framework of that installation, we have had the signature of the company manufacturing bathrooms for the reduction of water consumption. Some effects are measurable, some others instead impact the entire industry.
Bene, grazie a Maria Porro. Adesso
C'era anche un'altra, la mobilità.
Thank you very much, Maria Polo. There was also another section, mobility. Obviously, we have so many entries. Mobility is also a very important aspect. We have our own ticket office, and we can measure who arrives from where. And luckily enough, the trade fair site is very well served in terms of means of transport. So 63.04% in fact enter from the East Gate, and therefore we have a master agreement with Frecciarossa. I see Marco Sabetta in front of me. It's not simple, but we can reach these results. We have 26 Frecciarossa trains that stop every day during the Salone. We have then reintroduced the shuttle bus from and to the airports, and therefore from the airport to the trade fair site. We have a car sharing, carpooling agreement for electric vehicles, and luckily we can tell you that the effort is huge when it comes to all these areas. So it is an all-round 360 degrees effort. And I would like to invite the two partners to join us. So the two partners of the Politecnico of Milano, Francesco Zurlo and Stefano Maffei, the two professors who have participated. Here they are. I think we are waiting to be joined by the second professor. This report has been commissioned by Salone, but data has been collected and gathered by Professor Zurlo and Professor Maffei and by their staff. Here we see Francesco Zurlo joining us.
E con loro andrei un po' più nel merito, diciamo, del rapporto.
I would love to deep dive a bit further into the report results. We're going to look at the following chapters as well. I'd love to start from Zurlo. And my first question is, what were the key topics for the research? Well, first of all, we were observing the Design Week and the whole of the correlation existing between Salone del Mobile and Design Week. And also, we wanted to understand a bit more around the ecosystem. So the design ecosystem, and we heard from Landry when he said the software, the hardware, the orgware. So we have decided to take advantage of this opportunity, myself and my team, because we are truly passionate for design. And this is no doubt a beautiful opportunity for us to really understand more what is behind this phenomenon and what is it that is happening throughout the Design Week and what is it behind the design system, which is there 365 days a year. So this one thing. We've struggled a bit on numbers, on data. Data is quite fragmented, we have to say, so available data was quite fragmented. So for us to be able to create let's say, a meaningful structure, we were struggling a bit, and the data set we collected were different. We did speak to many data holders, and we were having access to all different sources. And our job, let's say, the biggest effort was very much to develop a pattern where we could kind of connecting the dots and provide a significant image of the design system as well as the repercussions on the city, which was the bottom line of the research. Well, actually, if you allow me to step in, what Francesco says is really meaningful, because we really meant to develop develop a kind of a prototype where we could have a intertwined data, also according to the methodology that we have adopted. So what we did approach the three key topics. So the design week, what happens in the city, and then the second piece was the Milan design system, and then the impact overall. So at the beginning, when studying the design week, we did work with theorysalone.it, and also we did kind of worked along with relevant stakeholders to try to understand more about the events which are taking place. We're talking about some 1,300 events happening in a single week. And so we were running a survey along with the stakeholders. And through the survey, we've been able to analyze some aspects more in detail, and I will share information in a moment. Also, we wanted to have a direct observation on what was going on. So through the School of Design, we did develop a Passion in Action mission, 110 students and another 30 students from Interni magazine, who could literally kind of hovering around, allow me to say this, observing what was going on, collecting answers again, trying to really have some qualitative-based responses. And then you see 37 data holders. I don't know if you realize how difficult it can be to access data holders. We heard about the creative bureaucracy earlier on, but this is really a relevant topic, and this is not just for Milan or the Salone del Mobile. So for everybody, whenever you want to access data holders, it can be really, really, difficult and articulated. And also the sources, 86 sources, which are really making up the very complicated puzzle that we meant to then kind of address into a prototype, as I said. So this is the map. You may perhaps appreciate it that there are different areas all around the cities. So the 1,300 events which I mentioned earlier, it is impossible to show them on the map, and maybe in the future we will be able to kind of further expand this map to cater more for what's going on. But just to start on this 1,300 event, well, they were increasing by 10.5% versus 2023. So we are already considering, because we've now observed 2023 and 2024, try to understand what is the continuity now in the after-pandemic era. 4 key words that I'd like to share, which best describe our approach. Interconnection, first of all. So we looked at the main, let's say, compelling aspects from the city are attracting attention. And it might be that many of us have had some direct observations, but also we have spoken to those who have perhaps observed new and smaller events happening. But the bottom line is that we really meant to look at the overall network, which was also described by Landry earlier on. And then the second point is the sharing. Well, it looks like Milan Design Week kind of delivers a collective experience where several conversations are happening, several experiences, cultural experiences are happening, and this has really become the wealth of it, something that it also becomes the key takeaway for people who travel back to the countries. And then the third aspect, the reconfiguration. As Landry was saying earlier, we keep reshaping what we deliver, what we build, and clearly this is evident. This very much goes without saying in Salone del Mobile. So Salone del Mobile is really performing what I would call a meta-reflection to keep reframing and providing a reconfiguration of the whole of the organization itself. And then redundancy. It looks like we all learn to do anything, and it means that we're now able to really move from the hardware piece to more of the software piece, and this is something that that not only people in Milan can access to, but really everyone coming from wherever in the world. We were then investigating, trying to understand what were the main organizers types. So on one side you have companies, of course. Companies account for 50%. Either Milan companies, so companies already well established in Milan, or emerging companies, meaning those smaller companies that want to tell about their offer and want to make themselves a bit more visible. But also then we have in the list design studios, creative collectives, architecture firms, as well as cultural institutions, which have the necessity as well as the willingness to develop this collective experience, which really starts on site. And then if we look at how these events were being, let's say, unfolded, when were they being delivered? So you see there's quite an interesting balance between the more structured event, so involving more than 10 people, 40%, and then the rest. The rest is between 1 to 5 and 6 to 10 people, meaning that the whole of the city, the whole of the different sizes of companies in the city may access to the kind of event organization. And this is also mirroring the contents which are being produced. Content also mean products, maybe being delivered by startup companies. And they really get mingled with the limited edition prototypes, specific installations, or even research or educational projects, which are being organized more by the institution. So, again, what I'd love to emphasize is a broad offer, which is very much mirroring the complexity that Landry mentioned earlier on. So, of course, there's a topic of industrial production, but on the other side, and it doesn't mean to be a contradiction, we have the possibility to kind of be inspired, starting from a personal dimension, so expressing own identity and creativity, and making it become a part of a system. And then the target audience. Well, again, I guess this is very much mirroring what I've just said. You see, we come across a kind of professional stakeholders, and we also have design lovers, close to 20%, and then the students, which are our bet for the future, the new generations, so that we can broaden up the audience to this beautiful event. And then the one last thing that we may talk through is the main cost items, again, within the Design Week, of course. Now, other than the list, which I'm now sharing on the slide, what really strikes, and this is something that Francesco will delve into in a moment, well, there's a whole structure of professional services which are making it possible for Design Week to succeed. And again, numbers are here for you to see. And this is also reflecting the number of people who are taking care of the setup only, some 80,000 people setting things up. So the whole of the city is on site, is very much there working. And it's not just about the creativity piece, but also the hardware, the software, which are really making the things possible in the end. One last slide from my side. As the installations, well, there has been quite an interesting intention in reuse and recycle materials. This, of course, brings us back to the circularity topic, which is super important for the Salone del Mobile, but also for a broader inspiration, of course, for anything that happens in the city. We should really consider what was the collective effort to make this become the key words because we want this to become a real example, also to be incorporated for future strategies. And I think we are on the right pathway. Thank you.
Thank you. With Maria Porro, we have talked about Salone del Mobile. With Stefano Maffei, we have talked about the Design Week. With Francesco Zurlo, we would like to explore the very concept of Milan design system. So tell us about it. So, first of all, this is a term we first used in 1999 because we got some funding from the Ministry of Research because even though belatedly they understood that design is a fundamental resource for the country's competitiveness. So they funded this research to understand the reasons behind the success. And on that occasion, we came up with this concept, a design system, which helps us understand something. You've got professionals, you've got institutions, we have corporate companies, associations, but it's the very interaction, the very interdependence existing among these players that makes this system significant and competitive on the international scene. And there is more to that. It is a sort of socio-technical cultural capital, which is quite distinctive. It's quite peculiar. That's something that I learned from Landry. And it doesn't deplete its power. So the more you use this capital, the more it grows. And this Milan design system is meant to measure this network of relations. Landry talked about this system of relations, and the Milan design system tries to map these relations. To do that, we have these 9 macro categories ranging from design core, which is a more traditional design activity, therefore design of product design, fashion design, communication design, visual communication design, and also partly interior design. We then have tried to understand what is the system supporting the design core, which we called assist. So we investigated the system of cultural, trade fair, exhibition institutions, training, education, distribution, and the system of research dedicated to design. Unfortunately, today we cannot explore all these 9 categories, but you can reference chapter 4 of the report. So I'll be focusing on some of these data and of the figures. First, a significant figure concerns the province of Milan and Milan itself, and it's a figure that we got from ISTAT, from the Statistical Research Institution, and this data has then been crossed with other sources. We have talked about, therefore we have talked with the Istituto Tagliacarne, which since 2017 has been submitting a report called Design Economy, which is a snapshot of the design economy system. And we have seen we have some 14,000 active companies that are in Lombardy, based in Lombardy, and half of them are based in Milan and in its surroundings. So some 7,000 companies are based. It's a very significant figure because we are one out of the 7 companies that deal in design, and it's based in Milan. This research also provides some extra insights because when I travel abroad, they always ask me how many are the people, the Milanese creative, because I always tell people that Milan has the highest concentration of creatives per square kilometer. Today we can finally share this piece of information. Obviously, this is anyway quite interesting. If you consider the square kilometers that characterize Milan, we have some 17,000 people, individuals dealing with design, at least those we managed to map, which means 90, 100 designers per square kilometer. And therefore, if you walk from here to, say, the cathedral, the Duomo, you can encounter several dozens, and obviously today we have a high concentration. Maybe today these statistics is not precise. We then measured something else. So this is data up to December 2023, and we have relied on data from the Chamber of Commerce of Milan, Monza, Brianza, and Lodi that also provide data about the concentration of these individuals. As you can see, we have almost 36% of people working in communication design. Approximately 35% of these people deal with fashion and industrial product design. And then we have all the other data, technical design. We are mainly referring to ISTAT data, which, as I said, provides a snapshot of the professional work of design, which is data that was provided in 2022, but it doesn't succeed in capturing the entire snapshot. It will be refreshed in 2025, and we also tried, to make additional comparative analysis between various databases, including the Chamber of Commerce. A significant figure we have recorded plus 66% between 2009 and 2023 based on the timeline of the data which are provided by the Chamber of Commerce. And this is a very interesting figure. Therefore, they have growth dramatically. This figure also comprises 12% of these companies that grew over the past 14 years is managed by young people. 40% are foreign. This means that Milan is a friendly city. It welcomes people with skills, talented people, people who want to work around the design system. Another significant piece of information is the female share, because 27% of these companies have been promoted by women. Keep in mind that the European average is 24%. Therefore, there is still room for improvement, obviously, and we account we have 2/3 of our students are female. We have a sort of opposite phenomenon. In this case, we would like to welcome a wider male presence. But this helps you understand the orientation, of the population to design. We also notice that we have an assay system which is particularly significant, and it's all companies that complete the design offer. For instance, we need maybe to have photographers, we need to design a space for a presentation, we need PRs, we need communication. We have mapped over 3,263 cultural and creative companies supporting design activities. As to the distribution system, very interesting again. These concerns all the companies that distribute design, not only interior design, therefore design broadly meant. We have mapped over 600 that instead concern interior design in Milan and the province. This is data that we got from the Index Guide of Internic. Something that I can claim is that we still have a fragmented situation, because almost 55% of these companies that manage distribution relies on just one single store. Only 6% has got 3 up to 10 stores. Then we have maybe some breakdown in the report. Let us now focus on something which is very interesting, design education system. We have 4,600 students at the Scuola Design Politecnico, and we have had some of them, mapping the city of Milan, and we have 16,000 overall that we have, surveyed through the Ministry of Research, and they concern particularly universities AFAM, which is the higher learning artistic, and it includes the Fine Arts Academy of Brera. It's a public institution, NABAC, which is a private institution. So we've got in total 16,000, and if we add them on to the 17,000 professionals, we have an even higher number of individuals per square kilometer that works in design. Something interesting is that we also have lots of private schools, over 20. We have 3 universities offering design education courses, Politecnico, Rocca, and Ulm, and we have then 11 AFAM institutions and 20 private schools. In that case, it's not that easy to collect, gather information. We just got this underway, and therefore we need to get in touch from closer. And let me conclude then with the design, research, and innovation. Therefore, not only revolving around technology, because obviously this is very close to design. In this case, we see a figure that we got from the European platform that maps all the research activities performed by European players. We have included some keywords, therefore all the research that focuses on design, design methodology, design as a competitive edge. And as you can see, we have a very significant scenario in terms of number, 384 million euro allocated between 2014 up to the present day, and that have obtained similar satisfying results. Almost 10% have concern Milanese players. Let me add some extra information as regards the patents, because Milan, 30% of invention patents that has been filed with the ministry is Milanese. And approximately 21% is patents, utility patents, which are definitely a little bit closer to design sensitivity. And well, it seems that all of these designers per square kilometer are extremely relevant. We have then some hope, because European Union has finally included design is in the ranking of IRC, European Research Council, which is acknowledged as a research domain, which is finally acknowledged, because we used to borrow from other research domains, and I believe I'm very grateful to some colleagues of Politecnico di Milano. Thank you, Francesco.
Passiamo do la parola a Stefano al capitolo 5, che è quello dove si cerca di misurare l'impatto che sia il Salone che la settimana
chapter 5, so we try to understand what's the impact of Salone over the city and over the Design Week, broadly speaking. Okay, these are some of the highlights that I'm going to share with you. The report will present a more thorough analysis. Now, you heard around quality. We of course, are very keen on saying that the quality I've spoken about is very much what is being delivered by the Design Week and by the Salone del Mobile. And this is really, it really makes it really compelling for people to come to Milan. They want to come and visit. This is a piece of information that comes from SEA, from the airport information. So these are the hubs, Malpensa and Linate, which are welcoming air passengers, and they come from all sorts of destinations. We have reported a growth by 12%, which goes hand in hand with the growth rate that we are reporting throughout. Also, we learn a bit more about what these people are flying from. So if we take a look If we take a look at how many hotels they are attending, and whenever they're happy to fill in the forms in terms of where they come from, these are the numbers we come to. So we do have a growth in 15% of people coming from foreign countries, and they come from China, India, Middle East. And also this really speaks enormously for the internationalization efforts that Salone del Mobile is making. This slide is also telling us that both Design Week and Salone del Mobile are made of people moving around, coming to the city and delivering an economic impact which is truly relevant. This is something that we can easily measure in the accommodation facilities numbers. So if you compare to 2023 again, and you take traditional hotels, well, traditional hotels haven't really changed much, so there's a 0.8% in minus, but actually you see a growth rate by 70% of the non-hotel facilities. So this means that this is an interesting phenomenon. Also, New York was reporting around a huge increase in hotel costs, and this is the reason why non-hotel facilities are now becoming, let's say, being tested and explored by tourists and visitors. So this shows us that Milan is very much adapting to the new demanding to this new demanding industry. Also, we have checked everything that is happening within the region, Lombardy. So when we say positive repercussion on the city, well, this is a much broader scale. This is the overall repercussions on the whole of the region of Lombardy. And again, you can see that, well, people are also traveling by trains, by the way, but they very much go and book their hotels everywhere in the region, so, and not just in the city of Milan.
Qui è un'analisi, passiamo diciamo a un dato più concreto.
I'm sharing here a bit more tangible number. As you can see, the per capita tourist daily expense, and you can appreciate again an overall growth being reported, and it breaks down in how do these people experience both the city as well as the event. You can clearly see that not only, of course, there's an impact on city and transport, which I'm going to show you in my next slide. Also, you can see here that design very much connects to all sorts of other services, assets, hotels, and the commercial side, and then how to purchase in the city. So positive impact is positive impact is reported also on how to further expand, let's say, the numbers that we do observe in a week. How can we expand it for the rest of the year? And this is because we are very much observing new value chains, which are literally being established. So it would be interesting to see how these value chains can perhaps be broadened up throughout the rest of the year. Namely, learning new skills, upskilling for people, again, of course, design-wise. This can become a new economic driver for the city of Milan as a whole. Also, with Polis is an agency from Lombardy region, and they allowed us to perform a more in-depth analysis around how people move around through their devices, through their smartphones. And what's interesting here and by the way, this is a tool that we are now implemented, we can literally check what's going on throughout the cities in some very special sites. So let's say that the phone cells are kind of tying to the smartphones, and we're therefore able to develop a whole map where I can track the movement of people. How do people walk around? They move around. We were kind of developing some pathways and trajectories, considering the most interesting areas in Milan. And you see, I have displayed 3 on the slide. And again, you can see there has been a huge increase in people moving around these areas here, which are being reported. Also, we are reporting peaks on Fridays, Saturdays, for instance, and this is clearly saying that the city is vibrant. Well, this kind of goes without saying. It is fairly visible to everybody, but we do have some scientific evidence here showing what's really going on. And what is also going to be interesting maybe in the future is to kind of describe the whole of a user journey. So the typical traditional day of the user coming to Milan during the design week. And then hand in hand with the transport information, let me show you what happens to the tube station. So Milan Underground, of course, is allowing people to travel around. The huge number, again, we are reporting increase in terms of passengers being transported through the underground, plus 10%. It means that the underground is serving the needs successfully, and we've actually been able to mitigate that need versus what happened to prior years. This is about the share mobility services, and again, it is comparing 23 to 24. What stands out here is that bike sharing is increasing. So let's say that bicycle was perhaps not the preferred choice, not the first choice back in 2023, where it is becoming in 2024. And taxis are now mentioned. Well, it's better not to talk through taxi. It brings bad luck. So better not to say about this. Also, the report is very much taking into account other types of mobility, and of course, taxis are included in that. One last piece of information, the collective waste impact. So this is data we've received from the municipality of Milan. We have spoken to the Councillorship for Environment, and we have, again, considered the kind of up and down in the waste collection. And we have realized that year on year, there's a small increase in terms of waste collection, but Design Week does not stand out as the real peak in terms of waste collection, so there's no correlation. Of course, we might dive further into this piece of data and understand how to be more accurate when it comes to waste collection. Thank you, Stefano Maffei.
Alle conclusioni farei un breve giro di tavolo.
So I think we are drawing to a close, and I would like, therefore, to exchange some more comments. Even before reading the data, Milan is the capital of design, and therefore, how can it keep its leadership? Maria Porro, please. I think the answer has been given by Professor Landry earlier this morning. Milan is the capital of design, and I believe our goal is to change. The goal is to change this, reframe this sentence. So we need to be the capital of design for the world versus in the world. And this is possible with hard work, daily hard work. This is possible by giving the collective intelligence some investments like this research. Also with a view to sharing. We have talked a lot about sharing.
individuando delle direttrici.
by identifying common goals to attain sustainability is undoubtedly one of those. And another key word which wasn't mentioned this morning, but Salone advocates it, is quality. Quality which must never be traded off, which must never be compromised. Salone is distinctive as regards the governance, and the report dedicates one chapter to governance. The governance of Salone is solid. It is owned by Federazione, and therefore, first of all, they reinvest everything into the industry, so that all year round, 365 days, these people that work with the Politecnico, I don't know how many creatives, so that what we see when we draw the curtain is adding sense, adding significance, meaning, investing in the culture of design. And if this is the common goal, next step is keeping up, therefore working together into this direction without never ever undermining or compromising the quality of every single event. We talked about orchestration, and therefore we need to save the jazz improvisation while having a shared direction, common goals and rules. It's a very challenging and ambitious goal, but the presence of the audience, therefore the people who are into the things we have talked about, and the quality of these people, I believe this is a hope for this goal to be reached together. The jazz improvisation is creativity on the spot. Professor Zurlo, I think it's true that it's improvisation, but there is a sort of plot that we need to set out from, and probably it's the very quality of the plot, that of the canvas, that somehow helps all these players be redirected, all with their performance, with their skills, abilities. We need to understand what the plot is all about, provided that this was a traditional piece of music. It might be a score, but let's use the word, canvas, plot. We have identified the self-organization dimension. The moment you harness it, it might probably lose its creative drive that characterizes it. The score or the plot, I believe it is up to the institutions that stand out within this system. I've highly appreciated the generosity and the responsibility of Salone del Mobile Federlegno, because they have wanted to promote this research, because they have the credit of completing this plot. Landry talked about the invisible hand, which I believe might be a different synonym for this idea of the plot. And if I draw on pedagogy, the hidden CV, the hidden resume, you go to school, you have a teacher, you look at her, and you know upfront the way things are gonna work, something intangible, something invisible, and we need to understand how we can consolidate this hidden CV. How can we present a good practice? Therefore, something that makes everyone agree with everybody else, and therefore you don't want to make a bad impression, obviously, in the Salone and outside the Salone. And obviously, this has got organizational repercussions. This is supposed to involve institutions, not only the municipality of Milan, but also the Lombardy region. And this requires to take joint steps, to take joint measures. And it's the orchestration, as I said, behind this jazz composition. Stefano?
cerco di proseguire sulla
I would like to follow along the same lines as Francesco. I believe that this is how to create a collective governance. This experiment has been connecting with the stakeholders. I hope this will continue, not only in terms of listening, but also in terms of proactivity. I believe that we also need to focus on two specific topics, how to feed the system with talent and creativity. I believe we need to develop a collective policy for attracting these talents. The figures are self-explanatory, but we are still talking about a self-organizing phenomenon. We have had experience and examples in other European countries that advocate, that promote, foster these talents who are the resources that the Milan design system is grounded on. Second concept, second level is making this articulation permanent, hard and soft. This is an infrastructure. This system needs tangible elements, agreed policies that must move in the same direction. And let me reach the conclusion. Landry early this morning talked about civic imagination. So I believe that governance and infrastructure are for the good of this civic imagination. And Professor Landry posed us some questions. Where are we heading for? Where do we want to go? Where do we want to be? I think this prototype is meant to lay the foundations, and this is not to be an individual exercise, an individual effort, but a collective and tangible effort. And obviously, these data must be activated so that we have really the possibility to make the difference faced with a post-crisis scenario. But I think we can make it. I think we can conclude this short round table and tell us something about the future. On December 13th, we will make some statements. What do I mean by that? I can tell you that we are organizing an international forum, an international conference of lighting, dedicated to architects, lighting designers, lighting engineers, everybody that works in research, design. It will be Thursday and Friday, and it will be during Euroluce with some leading speakers, and precisely because we have talked about the culture of design, how we can feed this ecosystem so that it can be accessible to everyone. This is a tangible example of the investment Salone will be making. We will then move along the same lines, therefore working with great directors. So we will let you know something next December the 13th. We work with David Lynch, Greenway, so we want to observe ourselves from outside. And this is a practice that we want to repeat. Therefore, we will be working with 2-3 design professionals, artists. We have seen Nanucci with You Can Think the Opposite, but also the dialogue with the world of art that can pave the way to new perspectives, in addition to all the initiatives that obviously oblige us to fly on a weekly basis. So we can therefore wait for December the 13th. I thank Maria Porro, Francesco Zurlo, and Stefano Maffei. And thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite Claudio Feltrin, the chairman, president of Federlegno. Arredo.
Benvenuto, anche se lei è l'ospite, io
Welcome.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Thank you for being my guest. Thank you so much for being with us today. So, you do represent the whole of the value chain of the industry, along with Federlegno. And this is very much both the heart and the brain of the Made in Italy that we all talk about. So let's analyze the industry more from an economic standpoint after inflation, conflicts, uncertainties. This is not an easy moment, no doubt. So how is the industry going? Well, we are some 66,000 companies. When it comes to interior design and furniture, is around 140,000 operators. The weight is around 8% of actually 14% of all Italian companies within the industry, and 8% of all the experts. And we do manufacture within the country. So this is what we very much reach in. So the portion, the chunk of Made in Italy that we stand out for is very much represented by what I've described. And Salone del Mobile is in a way showcasing everything that I just said so far. And yes, it does not just happen during Design Week, but also through the rest of the year. So how is the industry doing? Well, I won't be saying anything new if I say that the scenario is quite worrisome for some aspects. 21 and 22, right after the pandemic, have been amazing years and quite irrepeatable because no doubt they were stemming from an extraordinary scenario, which was the pandemic. And right after, of course, we all know what we started to experience, conflict 1, conflict 2, with all the relevant repercussions. Last year, we were kind of normalizing numbers, so we were reporting a decrease in furniture by 3-4% approx. Whereas this year we are confident to kind of break even, same as a prior year. Well, perhaps we might report a minus, we don't know yet. But what's interesting, of course, is to take a look at the outlook because 24 is about to finish. So if we consider outlook for 2025, actually we do expect some positive signals as interest rates are now being decreased, and companies like ours, I mean, we're very much interested into tax rates, especially because we struggle from a financial standpoint often. And also there is some kind of normalization perhaps in the Israel-Palestine conflict, so the Middle East conflict. And we are more than hopeful that it might actually come to a positive conclusion soon. As far as U.S. elections, well, finally they've got their president, and this again likely is going to solve soon, hopefully, the other conflict, which is closer to us from a geography standpoint. Also because this makes it very difficult for companies to operate. So there are lights and shadows. To kind of wrap up, well, you're very positive in terms of a conflict solution. I am not that optimist, but there's also the duties aspects, the custom duties that everyone is now talking through. Yes, duties might actually impact negatively to United States market because, of course, they play a crucial role. So 20% that is now being mentioned as potential duty, and this would no doubt decrease the market. It would actually be kind of a difficulty for such a high-performing industry as it has been. And then also there are some indirect repercussions on that because if United States is hitting China as they expect to do with 60-70% duties, no doubt that the Chinese will have to look at other markets and potentially they will be even heavier in terms of coming into Europe with their own Chinese products. And unless Europe is able to kind of stand out and defend and stand for their own industries and product, this may no doubt become another source of tension. Well, I understand you're very optimistic on that as well, so it all sounds quite positive. Well, number show it, and guests also earlier on they said it. This is a leading sector. Legno Arredo is leader worldwide. So my question now is, how can you best preserve this leadership? How do you make it to be leader, not only with products and services, but also what's going on from a sustainability standpoint? Well, we have trusted sustainability as a key item from day one, and we were very much pioneering back in 2015, 2016. We did start introducing a kind of policy to raise awareness, to make people more sensitive. We were talking to our companies, asking them to look at transition. It was 9 years ago. It looks like it was ages ago, but it was like we wanted to be a bit snobbish, in asking companies to pursue sustainability. Whereas we realized that sustainability has really become all across. And now the Thunberg effect, whether you want to take it positive or negative, because of the effect that we're now experiencing on automotive. There is a huge unemployment risk out there, which is quite scaresome. But again, there's quite a controversy around the sustainability, but again, we have been leader in pursuing. And I like to be leader. I love this position, but you have to be able to stand for it, show it, demonstrate that you can actually prepare the trajectory for the whole of the supply chain. And I think we have done it within the Federazione, within our federation. First of all, we have taken a snapshot of what was the status quo, as we realized that some of our companies were already embracing a kind of a transformative process into that direction. But then, obviously, we were still lagging behind with the very small-sized companies and the very small-sized companies, where this kind of sensitivity, it is not as high, and there's little awareness. But because big companies, they do work with small companies, well, the two altogether, they may really become a key driver. Within the Federazione, we are very much next to our affiliate so that we can be hand in hand in pursuing this new direction. And actually, there's a Flablas, which is a portal that we've recently opened and launched to support companies in this pathway. We did start with a manifesto, let's say, showing what are the top 10 items. And from then, of course, we want to translate all of these 10 topics into tangible effects. It doesn't have to be just a new cost exercise, but it should really kind of drive the new organization model for companies, which no doubt is going to be part of our future, because the youngest generation are very much experiencing this topic as a dear one, and it might become a discriminating factor for being successful or not being successful in the market. I have one last question, and I'd love to talk through Salone. Salone was being established into the vision of a number of entrepreneurs. It was 63 years ago. It was quite an enlightened vision to establish such a beautiful event. Now, after 63 years, after 62 editions, is Salone still playing the same role? Does it still have the same meaning, business-wise, of course? Is it more of a symbolic event, if you will? Well, let's bear in mind that Salone, yes, indeed, was very much established by enlightened entrepreneurs who grouped together at some point, and they kind of they gave birth to this beautiful idea. And this is an idea that we still live on and live with. But actually, let me say something. we are celebrating the 80th anniversary of the Federazione, because actually the Federazione was born a bit earlier on, and then it was only a few years later that Salone, the event, was being established. Of course, so many successful stories I could talk through, and they really stem from that very initiative back 63 years ago. Salone has allowed us to also see new companies being born, established, grow, succeed. So the kind of a showcase that Salone is delivering, and no doubt that the pandemic has provided a great acceleration, and thanks so much to the great job that Maria and her staff are doing. Well, you know, we've kind of been able to adjust and adapt this beautiful stage, this beautiful showcase to what we really need. At the end of the day, we do manufacture real product, tangible products, products that we live with. So we have made it possible for Salone to make an appointment that nobody wants to miss. But of course, we need to kind of update to become up to speed so that we can really respond to the market expectations. And not just from our company's viewpoint, but also Salone itself has to do this job, and I do believe we're quite effective in doing that. And again, we want to be the one appointment that nobody wants to miss. Different from structured companies where, you know, that maybe communication department are actually able to communicate in a more effective manner. I think the best way for us to communicate is to showcase products through Salone. Many companies would not have the possibility to actually provide that effective communication if it was not during such an exhibition. So no decline. I mean, there's no less importance whatsoever. You know, people still saying virtual might become important. I still believe that the physical world is what we want to live in. Thank you, Claudio Feltrin. I'm now asking Maria Porro for the final greetings. And we're absolutely on time. It never happened.
So final greetings. We have a dual page, and we are going to read it out. It's all the thanks. Of course, I'm not going to read it, but if you read these two pages, if we can read these two pages together, it's all the people who together can aim very high, as we already said. I thank you very much for supporting us today. I would like to thank the mayor. I would like to thank the city of Milan and all the councillors involved. I thank the governor and the region. I thank all the stakeholders, the data holders, the districts, the neighborhoods, the areas that contributed to this work. I also would like to thank Politecnico, obviously Professor Zurlo and Maffei for the outstanding work. I would like to thank the staff of Salone del Mobile, because when it comes to the report, we have a contribution made by the people who work for Salone del Mobile, from the top management all the way down to every single player. I thank Susanna Legrenzi, who is the person behind the curtains. I don't know where she is right now, but I would like to thank her for contributing to the creation and realization of this incredible work. We would like to conclude with an interesting piece of information. It's a video which is Comunità Continua. It has been filmed by Gianluca Vassallo, and to conclude Salone 2024, this gives definitely priority to people, with people, because it's people that make the difference. Therefore, in addition to this extensive knowledge of data, and I thank everybody.